at her. Let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. And I guess you can say it is a family reunion because the cast of Manely Broncos is back together. You have the gang, I should say. You have Brandon Miller in the house. You have Matty Mulls in the house. And Marcus Boggs, Mr. Boggins, or should we say Mr. Famous, right now, with what's been going on, with the Denver Broncos, or I should say specifically with a couple cornerbacks for the Denver Broncos. First things first, Boggins, it's awesome having you back. It's been, I can't even tell you the last time you were on here. It has been a long time. A lot has changed. Or maybe stayed the same, depending on how you want to look at the team. But I just think that, a lot has changed, and, it's good to have you back, and welcome back, as being a part of the Manely Broncos alumni.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I totally forgot about the pitter patter. That caught me off guard as much as it did the first time. Thank you for that. Also, thank you for the famous right now. You didn't have to add the right now, but that's fine. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to talk Broncos. I am happy that our Broncos won, not this last week, but before that. I live in the past. That's kind of my thing. And I'm excited to talk about the future win, hopefully this coming week.
And future in general.
Yeah. And the artist future.
Right. Brandon and Matty, how are you guys doing? Brandon, what, you doing okay? How was the trip? I mean, you're obviously back. You survived.
I survived, man. It was so much fun. 10 out of 10 vacation. 10 out of 10. I don't know. Matty, did I tell you about this? Boggins, I know you don't know.
I don't
know if Matty knows exactly what I was doing on my trip. So
I know you
I went to Chicago. Yeah. It was amazing. It was so much fun. Honestly, I highly recommend. We ate at this restaurant. Literally, I'm not even kidding. This is the best food I've ever eaten in my life.
Okay.
Like, it's now my favorite restaurant ever. I will go back there just to eat there. So good. Everything was amazing. It was honestly amazing. I recommend Chicago. Highly recommend.
What kind of restaurant was it?
It was an Italian restaurant.
Okay.
It was like, I know, it's funny. It wasn't a hot dog. It wasn't pizza. Honestly, the pizza was a little disappointing.
Okay.
But this Italian restaurant,
hot take,
changed my life.
Okay. All the people from Chicago in here are going to be so mad at you.
Well, let me give some context before we get into this.
Hurry up.
I'll keep this quick.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want them coming.
I believe a mistake was made because we went to a place that has been recommended to me by people. I have a cousin that lives in Chicago. They're like, go to this restaurant. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's a chain. It was a chain pizza place. I feel like if we went to a local pizza place in Chicago, would have been a different experience. So I do believe a mistake was made there, and it probably would have been better. But that's how it was.
All right, Matty.
Anyway,
you doing good? How are you doing?
Man,
basketball season's almost here.
Yeah, thunder up, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
That's okay.
All the way. Hey, you know what? Seattle will get a team real soon. Real soon. It's gonna happen. I mean, it's like the worst kept secret in the NBA. Yeah. I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for that season to start. The Sooners obviously suck at offense. The Broncos, for the first 3 quarters, every game suck at offense. So that's not so great. But I'm chugging along. I'm almost done with my degree. I'm getting in line to go get some certs and stuff. So life after the military is seeming a little less scary these days. And yeah, man, life is good.
Nice. Life is good. And, at least we think that life is good. The Broncos, from all intents and purposes, have their quarterback of the future. But don't tell people that are on Broncos Twitter or Broncos Facebook after a 3-game winning streak and after they lose to the Los Angeles Chargers, because it feels like the sky is falling. The sky is falling, and Bo Nix is falling. They need to move on from Bo Nix. Jarrett Stidham needs to be the starter. Zach
this is a perfect segue into our sponsor, which is BetterHelp.
Well played.
But Boggins, why don't we just kind of lead it off with you? Obviously, I know that you are the leader of the Michael Penix fan club, but like I know that you were still kind of I should say still kind of big on Bo Nix, and even when he was a prospect and everything, and now that you kind of see him and you look at what he's been able to do at the NFL level with Sean Payton, you gotta think that at some point they've got to show some level of patience, meaning the fan base. I mean, like it's been one of the frustrating things, right? I mean, like you finally get a chance to get a first round draft pick at quarterback. And lo and behold, we have a fan base not patient.
Yeah, it's it's kind of interesting how it works. I mean, people kind of rant and rave for the flashy brand new quarterback to start, and then when they do and they hit bumps, or they turn on red zone and see Jaden Daniels throwing 3 touchdowns, doing what he's doing, they're like, what the hell? Why don't I have that? And they think bust. Or like, I mean, there are people that are a lot in between. Like they take everything with a grain of salt, which is what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are some people that's like worst ever. Oh, already looking at next year's QBs, which not as good as last year. So
yeah.
It's just it's really unfortunate to see people aren't patient anymore. I am a firm believer that if you have a quarterback that is a leader on and off the field, he shows the ability to learn from his own mistakes.
Which is what we're seeing.
Huh?
Which is what we're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. Like that he can have that potential in big pressure positions where he has been in high pressure positions and been able to get out of it and have a successful play as a result of it. And I think that is some of the things that you like to see. And people just need to be a little bit more patient, in my opinion. I think what we've seen from him, I think there is a higher ceiling to come or can be. And when he was coming out, he was technically, I think, my 6th ranked QB. But it was kind of came with an asterisk because I thought that his fit with Sean Payton would bump him up the list because of how good I think they would fit. And I do think they still will fit. I just think it'll take a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of it, and maybe you did kind of touch on this, was that like a lot of people feel, or when they kind of get in this frame of mind where they start kind of just ripping Knicks apart, is that a lot of it, when you kind of dig deep and you look at them, it's like they just also kind of hated him in the pre-draft process. So it kind of all falls back to everything that they were evaluating him with, and it's like people change, prospects do change. I mean, you kind of said it yourself. I mean, like the way that he's been playing, yeah, there's probably a lot of times where he could probably do things a little bit differently, and the play's not been perfect. There's no doubt, but I think that the ceiling's a bit higher, right? The ceiling is a bit higher, and that's, I think, the part that I think a lot of fans and some fans are at least somewhat realizing, is that the ceiling might actually be a little bit higher than what we had anticipated.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of the rest of the team is producing as well as they could be as well. So I don't think that really helps. I mean, I shouldn't say the rest of the team. The rest of the offense. Isn't always there for Bo to kind of bail him out when he does have those hiccups as a rookie QB.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I do think I try to let the discourse around people being incredibly impatient just kind of like fade in and fade out, because that's what fans do. Like any team ever that gets a rookie quarterback that has any kind of struggle whatsoever, like that's just what's going to happen. And we're like arguably even more impatient than any other team. Like we're potentially one of the most impatient fan bases, but that's just like what fans do. It's the reason it comes from Fanatic, right? Which I know is like an overblown comment, but I try to let that just kind of go in one ear and out the other, because again, I think I agree with everything that Boggins said. Was it's far too early I mean, it's only been 6 games. You've seen some good things from Bo. You've seen some bad things from Bo. That's just kind of what happens when you have a rookie quarterback, especially when you have a rookie quarterback that doesn't have the greatest pieces around him. I mean, yes, you look at what Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams are doing. Arguably, they have, in my opinion, better weapons to throw to. Not that I don't love Courtland Sutton, but that's just kind of where my opinion is there. But I just think, it's the growing pains. This is exactly what you're going to get when you get a rookie quarterback, and everyone wanted a rookie quarterback. Now that we have a rookie quarterback, they don't realize this is also what you get when you get that. Like, it's not just going to be immediate. And we're going one game at a time here. I think there were some things, obviously, by far, in my opinion, the Buccaneers game was great to see from him. I kind of wish he kept that going a little bit more than he did, but I think we'll see what happens. The biggest thing to me that I've seen from him, and unfortunately this was kind of encapsulated in the Chargers game, was he's like, if he can just settle down in the pocket, I think he can be a lot better than he's been. Like, I think his ability is there. Like, him being able to run is great, but I think he wants to run too much. And also when he does throw, like, he doesn't do a great job all the time of like actually getting his feet set to throw. And I think, first of all, I think that led to the first pick that he threw, where he threw it a bit too high. He sort of set his feet, like not really. And then when he sort of calmed down a little bit later into the game, especially in the fourth quarter, you saw that happen a little bit more. And this is just what happens with rookies. But like, I think that's something that if he can get that cleaned up, which we'll see. I mean, not an easy thing to fix, but there's been other quarterbacks that have had that problem. I think this is just what you get with a rookie quarterback, and I think people want to think differently.
Matty?
Man, like, this is the problem, right? Yes, dude has a lot to work on. I get that. But if you look at it with optimism of like, okay, what is the path for this guy to have success? He can make every throw. Granted, he doesn't have like a Josh Allen arm. Very few people do, right? But he has a strong enough arm, and he could whip it in when he needs to into a window. Maybe he's not always on platform. Maybe he's not always stepping into every throw. But the guy is electric at being able to improvise. You know what the Broncos receivers suck at? Improvising. They have sucked at improvising for years now. Tim Jenkins calls out the scramble drill all the time.
Yeah.
And you know who's best at it? Is a rookie, Devon Vele, who just comes out of nowhere and he finds a way to get open and get in the right spot and make himself available for Bo Nix when he needs it. Would you stand in a pocket if you have 4 receivers on one side of the field that run curl routes and get no separation against the defense? What's the only thing you could do? Well, I'm not going to stand here and get lit up. I'm going to move around, and hopefully the receivers can find a way to get open, because if I stand here, they're not getting open, right? And so it's like, we call these plays for him. Where's his check down? Like, watch the all 22. He maybe missed some stuff, but there's a lot of these plays that, where is he supposed to go? Where's his hot read? Where is his, okay, take a profit for 4 yards, right? It's not there. We just don't have it. And this is the problem too. There's not enough to threaten the defense to force them to cover the entirety of the field. Our lack of elite talent at the skill positions is showing week in and week out. And we've gotten away with it in a couple of these games, and the defense has kept us in it in a couple of these games. But it's ugly because we've used a lot of elite draft capital on getting a quarterback who we're paying $85 million to not be here anymore, and our head coach. We're having to take our medicine. This is what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think that, when you look at just the playmaking room in general, like, we mentioned about the Marvin Mims play. See, I think it's a bit 50-50 to where it's like, Nix makes that throw to a guy like a little Jordan Humphrey or Courtland Sutton. I think you would venture to guess that Sutton or Humphrey comes down with that football. But I think that, if Nix obviously settles in and settles his feet a little bit, more, that throws probably a little bit lower, and and he probably hits Mims a little bit, in terms of their and it's not a tipped pass. So I just think though that, say it's a completely different situation, you're talking about a completely different round of results, right? With that in that game. But I just think that the other aspect of this too is, to the playmaking room, is there's hardly anything going on with the tight end room. There's hardly anything going on with the tight end room. And it's one of the reasons why he's trying to make so much work with the wide receiver room. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, I guess, like when you peel back the layers of it, why, you're finally getting the chance to see Troy Franklin get a lot more run. And you're specifically seeing Devon Vele. I mean, like, he's been injured the last, couple of weeks. I mean, the first game was obviously Seattle, but, I mean, make no mistake. I mean, like it feels like, I think I made the comparison to Marcus Colston to a degree, like when he was drafted. But it's like, there's something about him where it's just like, he's been getting the lion's share. I mean, like the targets, nothing but the targets right now. And it's one of the very few wide receivers that he trusts right now. So,
yeah, I think that's a big piece of it too. I just kind of wish you saw more. I wish you saw a little bit more from the wide receiver room, and I wish you saw a lot more from the running game. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. And I'd have to go back and look more into had a rushing game. Yeah. Look more into kind of what exactly caused that. I don't know if it was a blocking thing or a running back thing. Audric Estime had a couple of decent runs, and then just like obviously the game script kind of moved away from being able to kind of focus on that. But I just feel like if you can get the run game going more, you're going to help your rookie quarterback more. And I think we need to do whatever we have to do to get that fixed as much as we can. I believe Bo Nix is still our leading rusher on the team. Yeah. Probably not going to change anytime soon if we keep going the kind of pace that we're going at. And I don't think that's a successful formula. But I also agree. Like, I think you can get more out of that. The wide receiver room, Devon Vele, maybe there was like some kind of like, did it come out that he was injured or anything? I don't know why he got so little snaps to this point, but we got to see him used more. And I just think, yeah, it kind of comes down to, he's got to find that guy that knows he can trust. Cortland Sutton obviously is right there. I think Vele is getting to that point, and Troy Franklin, we'll see. He's also a rookie. He had that obviously drop, for that huge touchdown the week prior. And then against the Chargers, he was able to come down with one that was a pretty good throw by Bo. Just a simple concept on the route. Didn't ask him to do too much, but he got pretty wide open for him. So I definitely just think there's got to be something there that we can improve upon and just kind of have more consistency with, other than just Cortland Sutton. And maybe that's Devon Vele. But I agree as well that the tight end room, as much as that's been a problem for years, like, I think it's just kind of exasperated right now.
And I think looking overall with the game itself, maybe Boggins might be playing spoiler alert for a little bit later in the show. But Boggins, I think the other thing too is like that Charger game was just so weird from the very, very beginning. I mean, you had obviously the Bo Nix interception that we touched on, but you also had Jim Harbaugh in the unfortunate heart situation of him going out and going, to the locker room. And then PS2 unfortunately, being concussed and, ruled out for the remainder of the game. And then obviously we'll dive into the New Orleans Saints game, but like that, it just seemed like from the very beginning, like all things were off. And, the Chargers recovered, pretty quickly. And I think, that was in large part probably due to the coaching staff and rallying the troops just a little bit. But like the moment that Pat Surtain went out, Boggins, was like the entire energy of that entire game just was missing on both the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. And that should be expected because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans. And when you lose your best player, offense and defense, I mean, that is going to suck the life out of you no matter what.
It was kind of weird, though, because, like, VJ kind of panicked after that. It felt like it was like he changed his game to a point where it felt like Pat Surtain is gone. Oh, no. Now what?
Yeah.
And so they audibled so hard that it felt like the rest of the defense wasn't able to pressure the way they were going to, or they could in the past. They weren't able to get the blitz packages they wanted because they just like adjusted so hard, and they didn't trust their the depth to be man on man like they were able to do previously with Surtain and then Moss on the opposite side. Moss did a great job of there were some balls that got through and he was like in perfect position, and it's like hard to grade that poorly at all. But I think that was one of the stock downs for me as far as especially on the coaching side, was VJ just kind of panicked. And Peyton also, it's hard to tell. Like, it's really hard to tell until you watch the all 22 after some of the plays and some of the, like, if it's the receiver or if it's the play call. Some of the routes were just like made no sense and just were like super overcrowded, where you're not quite sure if that's on the receivers and like they're not running correct routes. Some of it you're not sure if Bo is still obviously learning and not throwing the correct to the correct read. If there's an option, he's not throwing to the right like there's just a lot of stuff that's going to come with time. That, I mean, I still believe in. I like Bo's floor. That's what I like. I like Bo's floor. I think he has good size. He's able to stand in the pocket. I wish he would stand in the pocket a little bit more. Sometimes he bails and panics a little too often. But I like his size to be able to stand in the pocket. When he does get touched, he has the ability to get out of it, and he's shown that. I think he has a little bit bigger arm than people give him credit for. I just think the chemistry will come with him and the receivers, although it does seem a lot like we're like leaning more towards like a receiver overall coming up anyway. So it's all a part of figuring out Sean Payton's system, which it's notorious for being overcomplicated, or at least the verbiage is.
I see it here in the comments, and it's at least fair to bring up. We won't talk about it from we won't talk about it from the preview of the Saints perspective, but just the Cody Barton side of it. So, like,
Cody Barton is terrible.
I mean, like he went through like the first couple games, like when Singleton went out, when he was good. He was really, really solid.
Two very underrated positions that I think are the Denver Broncos are going to have to address in the offseason, or like now, are inside linebacker and safety. I don't think those two are getting enough talk. I like Brandon Jones. He's doing okay. PJ Locke is not doing great. And our inside linebacker like group as a whole is not super impressive. Sternad is like our best current, like that's a problem. Like he's doing fine. He's playing fine. He's always been that like very athletic tight end. He's not like overly sized, right? That's why he's been so good on special teams, is because he's fast, he's athletic, and he's able to really get into those. You really get downhill and find those holes recently, and that's been great. But I'm not taking that to the bank. You know. So
then, and again, we won't do the preview just yet for the Saints, but like going forward, would you recommend moving forward with something like that as far as a matchup, whether that's on Kamara, or would you, in the sense, like put Justin Sternad on a running back, or maybe some tight ends or something like that? Because I think what was this, when he came in, when the Broncos drafted him, he was a linebacker that was converted from safety, right? Like, I mean, so like he's got somewhat of that safety background a little bit, and so that the athleticism, to your point, it shows up with Sternot. And I think thankfully what you're seeing right now in a short amount of time is what a lot of fans ourselves were really so high on with him, as a draft pick. And so I think right now it's good to see, and you hope it continue. But going forward, Matty and Brandon and Boggins, feel free to chime in. It feels like maybe they should go a little bit more from that, because obviously the play that is always etched in our mind is the one that Singleton got beat on in Seattle, and then Barton gets beat on almost the exact same play. Right?
You can never really give crap to a linebacker on a wheel route, man. Like especially with a more quick running back. It's just kind of like I think those are more
schematic,
more like the safety needs to be somewhat aware of the potential of it and needs to track back and try and bracket that a little bit better. But in a perfect world, sure, you have a really fast linebacker that can keep up with like an Edelman or something like that. I mean, not Edelman, Eckler or something like that. But it's just not super likely, especially with the leverage, because they're already they're facing downhill, and then you got this running back just whoop.
It's really hard not to talk about preview here with this question.
Yeah.
But there is zero reason why 41 should crush us this week. Olave's out. Shaheed is going to have surgery on his knee. Taysom Hill is out. Yes, they still have Foster Moreau, who has torched us in the past. They still have Johnson, who is a very good tight end in his own right. And if things go south for the Saints, wouldn't hate inquiring about him actually in the future. But outside of that, I love Spencer Rattler. I think that he was highly underrated going into the draft process. I think people crushed him for QB1 for entirely too long. I saw a lot to like in South Carolina. And you know what? The dude had a really good game on Sunday. It's just, when the other team scores 51 points, the quarterback really can't do a whole lot about that. So, yes, Rattler's good, but we talk about an offense devoid of talent. And granted, Kamara is better than anything we have offensively. If we have an elite defense, even with PS2 out, there's no reason why any one player should ever crush us, especially when they have to come out of the backfield to do so. We should be able to, you spy a quarterback, but we really should be spying the running back in this game. There should be no reason for him to be in space on screens or to be out on an island with somebody somewhere out running a route. You bracket cover that guy and force other dudes to beat you.
Yeah.
100%. Well, I would hope this is also where having the former offensive play caller and scheme maker and head coach of Alvin Kamara and the Saints on our team would come into play a little bit. But no, I definitely agree. I think, I don't know what exactly the plan is going to be there, but all I know is there's absolutely no way they can look at what happened with Barton on Kamani Vidal and not even just say it's on Barton and say oh yeah, we can't, those aren't changes we need to make here. And maybe that's again, more of a scheme thing where they're trying to get more help over the top on that potential wheel route coming open, which I think is just going to be more pronounced against the Saints. But I do think that's my biggest worry in this game, especially with Olave's out. If they confirmed that Shaheed had that, surgery. It was a serious knee injury. Yeah, I don't think they actually said what it was, but he's obviously out. He tore his meniscus. That's what actually was confirmed. Yeah. Damn. All right. Well, yeah, he's out. So I think they're going to obviously lean on Kamara even more, and we just got to figure out whatever we have to do to slow down or stop that. And I think that's what we do. But
they're starting wide receivers. Their top starting wide receivers, as far as the three, are Bub Means, Mason Tipton, and Dallas Cowboys legend Cedric Wilson.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if someone were to put up that little gif from Star Wars. It's a trap. Like,
Right.
because you just like you say it and you're like, oh man, we should. Like, even Alvin Kamara is on the limited participant list.
Yeah.
But like, you just hope for the best. You hope for the best. It is in New Orleans. You know damn well that Dennis Allen's going to come out there and be like, we have our backs against the wall. We got to do this shit, and then they might do some weird ass like hoorah slam of the Broncos. So I don't.
So are you
Taysom Hill is the wide receiver 1 for them. He's probably never going to play.
He's doubtful.
I know he's doubtful. I was totally kidding.
Yeah,
I was kidding.
Oh,
yeah.
No, he's not playing.
In a perfect world. And hey, I had a question though earlier. I posted on Twitter earlier today, just kind of on the side. Would you trade Alvin Kamara for Courtland Sutton?
I mean, I would, because there are a lot of other receivers available that you could go get. And I know that may sound blasphemous, but like, if anybody's going to be able to unlock what Alvin Kamara could do, it's our head coach. I don't know what the Saints angle would be on that, but yeah, I think
I'm assuming you're talking straight up too. Like, you're not talking draft.
No other compensation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there would. I mean, there probably would be, like, a little bit there, a little bit there, but I don't know. I think it's pretty straight up. Even.
Well, I would like if they take some of his contract and cap hit, I'd be more for it. He has a $29 million cap hit next year and $18 million cap hit this year.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there would be.
So with that said, right now I'm going to say no, but it depends on, again, how much of that is maybe being picked up by the Saints.
But you could also argue,
or being just restructured.
You could also argue like the contract, aside from maybe cap hit, but like what you're moving on from Courtland is almost getting offset a little bit with Kamara to a certain degree, and maybe you work some sort of restructure with Kamara once he's there for a little bit to kind of go through that. But from the production side of things, they play different positions, but you kind of are replacing a person with almost like the exact same type of production necessarily. And the fact that Sean does know how to use him, I mean, the one person, like if you were to forecast a little bit that Kamara might be a Denver Bronco would be, what do they do with Jaleel McLaughlin, right? What do they do with Jaleel? But like, again, like I very much would have a guy like that who's a safety net, because then you are going to be talking a little bit more about it's not a tight end, but you're talking a little bit more about targets to the running back out of the backfield, which is going to thus open up some more targets for guys like Franklin and Vele and wide receiver 1, little Jordan Humphrey, and some of these other weapons that they have that they can probably get some untapped potential for a little bit. So.
Yeah, I was just curious, just because I think, in all honesty, I don't know if Courtland Sutton's going to be here next year, and if you're able to get something out of him,
sure,
outside of a day. I mean, because last year it was a day 3. This last offseason it was a day 3, right? So like you're going to get at the max that maybe. This time around he's 30 years old, so is Alvin Kamara. Like I think honestly, Sean would be able to use Kamara more efficiently than he would be able to utilize Courtland Sutton. And I fully expect us to draft wide receivers anyways.
So. That's a good point.
Maybe not exactly like what we did, in the Fangio era where we take wide receiver back to back. But I definitely.
Out of anybody, I think Sean Payton. You could see Sean Payton using Kamara, Estime, and McLaughlin out there, and it would be just primo.
How did we double dip in that draft and miss on all the guys that we missed on? Like, just
maybe a
freaking real.
Johnson.
Yeah, it's pretty rough what that room looks like, especially if you remove Sutton. But like Vele is giving us more. I mean, Sutton had the incredible catch. I'm not going to downplay his ability to convert very unlikely plays in the red zone. That will help a young quarterback. But Vele seems to be a guy that's growing chemistry with him. They're going to be getting Franklin more involved. They're trying to anyway. Like you could see a pathway for Sutton's impact on the offense to be diminished, maybe not completely, but certainly reduced. And then if those 6 targets that went to Javonte Williams are going to Alvin Kamara, like imagine our efficiency numbers, those going up, our explosive plays going up. You know, that's they're quick plays that maybe we get some screens. We were able to tailor some things for him. That will make the offense a lot easier for Bo Nix. Certainly easier than it would be trying to scheme things for Cortland Sutton. So I see a lot of positives, and we have the ability to make things happen financially in the offseason. I'm not too concerned about his contract.
So looking into this game and then looking into this New Orleans Saints game, one of the things that I posed on Twitter was, I should say not post, but it was a prediction I have. I think that given the short week and obviously everything that did happen in this Chargers game and the fact about how they also ended that game, which was probably about as efficient a game as efficient a performance, meaning specifically that fourth quarter, that we have seen from Bo, even in the Tampa Bay game and even obviously into this Jets game. That was the most efficient we've ever seen him, play quarterback, for right now. My prediction is that they actually do what they did in Tampa, which is they win the toss and they actually receive the ball. They don't actually defer and, have the defense get its first crack and, its first shot at it. I like the idea because, based on how they played and how they ended it against the Chargers, it also allows them to get the ball rolling and get the offense rolling and get the confidence, flowing for them a little bit. And obviously with the Saints, the Saints game themselves, they probably also want, to score, right out of the gate so that they can be able to get that confidence. And I think it would be really good specifically for that, the offense.
I think they need to establish the passing game early. Like they kind of get a little too. They're trying to establish the run game, which I get. That's what that's intentionally what you should do. I understand it. However, when you have a rookie quarterback, I think you need to start him off with some more confidence building plays, like Tampa, like throwing some back shoulders right off the bat. Like that stuff gets you going. Like you could see Bo. You can take it however you want to take it, but like Bo has some confidence in him. He has some fire in him. He bites back at Sean Payton. Even though we're down 20-0, he's pointing at guys that he's juking. Like, let him build himself up a bit. Like get him some confidence rolling, and then you can kind of
take the ball first.
Huh?
So you're saying take the ball first?
No, not necessarily. We did that last week and got the shit kicked out of us. So I don't think that's necessarily the answer. I just think when you are on the field, that's how you should start the game, is getting him some more build that confidence, man.
The thing that really stuck me watching that game, though, while the offense got off the field entirely too fast, the defense could not get off of it. Oh my gosh. So it was like 37-22 and change for time of possession. It's hard to get your quarterback in rhythm when he's sitting on the sideline for almost a quarter at a time because the other team is just driving the ball down the field and you can't get off of it. So the defense, while they've been good for most of the season, they have to have some complementary football also. We have to have some shorter fields also. And that just didn't happen on Sunday. But like opening it up for Bo, like putting the other defense on its heels. If that defense is going to be on the field anyway, like we can't be, well, let's play complementary football and run the ball on first and second down and then try to convert on third down. And maybe we can need a couple of minutes to get our defense rest. Like you're playing prevent offense at that point, and that's not going to lead to success for us.
Yeah. Brandon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about just do something to open up the confidence for Bo a bit. Let him give him some, I don't know, go out and ask him like, hey, what's your favorite quick completion route? Or like, what's your favorite pass concept? Or do something, I don't know. But just like open it up like you did at the very beginning again of that Bucs game. Again, everything that I'm saying is what's already been said, but I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's kind of what's been missing. I think you need to let him just kind of get out there and let it rip. Like, right. I think he's maybe been too afraid of making mistakes, and maybe that's why he also gets a bit jittery and takes off. And I just got to let him settle down, let him get into a rhythm. I think, honestly, if we can do whatever it takes to get some kind of rhythm on the first drive that ends in points, doesn't have to be a touchdown. Yeah. I'll take a field goal, but do something on that first drive that ends in points. I think that's going to go a long way to just being able to start a game and not feel like, even if they don't, the opposing team doesn't score on the opening drive, just feeling like we're already behind. Like that's kind of my thing I'm going to watch for in this game. That's my takeaway is what can we do in the very beginning of the game to start out on building a rhythm, try to get the run game going a little bit, and just get points on the first drive. Don't even care what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other part of it too is like, use his legs a little bit more, in the first half too. Like, use some, QB powers. I mean, like, and specifically, use the play that they used for Russ last year, right? Like, it was the one that they used when the Broncos were playing the Chiefs, right, with Russ. Be creative, kind of use him a little bit. And obviously, I think that's probably one area where you're actually a little bit impressed with Bo is that he's not actually wanting to use his legs. He uses his legs still kind of at last minute, except he does bail a little bit too soon. But I just think that if you're able to do some of those things and some of the things that, whether it's short passes and, nice rhythm throws, I think that you'll see the confidence, exude a little bit more from Bo. And hopefully the wide receivers can, I don't know, get open, obviously like that's the other part of this is, they're going to have to get open. And that's probably one of the other reasons why Bailey is maybe leading, all the wide receivers right now that, of that room, basically with, yards for separation. Like that's the stat that like, he's basically leading the entire, wide receiver room. With yards of separation, it was like 3.6, 3.8 or something like that. So, I mean, like they need more of that, and so I'm hopeful. And I think on the defensive side of things, like it's just there's really only one point one person you got to focus on, and that's Alvin Kamara. I mean, obviously, you want to make sure that you shut him down. But I think that from the other defensive side of things, they also can't fall asleep, Matty, when it comes to Spencer Rattler because, he's got kind of a live arm, I mean, and I shouldn't even say kind of, he has a live arm, probably, one that would put him in the category of guys like Jaden Daniels and even, Caleb Williams and, live arm. I mean, it was just, so he could make you pay on certain window throws and everything where, Riley Moss may have the perfect coverage. Jaquan McMillan may have the perfect coverage, but Rattler might actually put it in a window where Bub Means is going to, by all means catch it.
I mean, yeah, Spencer can make every throw. Is he going to be able to process it, which he can. He developed that at South Carolina. He didn't under Lincoln Riley at OU. And can he just have the protection? He needs to be protected in order to do that. He tries to throw off his back foot too much sometimes off platform, and then maybe he overtrusts his arm, and that's where we can make him pay a little bit. But if you give him time, if we do not blitz him, if we do not get pressure on him, he has the arm to be able to pick us apart and make us pay downfield. So, he's not the fastest guy ever, but he can improvise a little bit with his legs too. So that's not something to completely overlook for him. We should be able to take care of him, no problem, with the personnel we have versus what they have. But who knows?
And I realize, Boggins and Brandon, that it feels like I'm talking up Spencer Rattler like he's the next coming of NFL Jesus, to quote Deadpool Wolverine. But but I think that the point is they can't get lost. The Broncos defense can't get lost in the sauce. Cause how many times did it feel like there were, quarterbacks where they were kind of nobodies, but the defense kind of fell asleep a little bit and they beat them. I think that specifically, if you're going to look at it, they handled their business, of course, against the Raiders. But for that first quarter specifically, you kind of saw a sense that they were falling asleep a little bit with, Gardner Minshew. And that can't happen against Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I think Spencer Rattler's a good quarterback. Obviously we haven't seen much of him in the NFL, but I think he should have been higher than a 5th rounder. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think what I hope not to see is the Denver Broncos kind of sling back too hard into the blitz heavy to the point where the Saints are prepared for that and they know what they have currently. And so they're going to be drawing up a lot of screens and just catch us off guard, because you do not. Alvin Kamara on a screen is absolutely deadly. So that's the kind of thing that I don't want to get caught off guard with. I think that hopefully we will be able to adjust out of that early, but I do see that maybe being an early punch in the mouth for the Denver Broncos. And I don't like us having to try and get out of holes with the current offense that we have. So there's that. But I do think there's a good possibility that we get the win. I think there will be a couple of large gains that will make Broncos fans grit their teeth.
Yeah. I think the one thing we saw from Spencer in the game against the Bucs, he's pretty good outside the pocket. If you let him get outside the pocket, he can make you pay. So I think that's going to be a big thing to try to contain him a little bit there. I'm not talking about this guy like he's a Hall of Famer, but I just think that that's something I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those gash plays that Boggins is talking about happen when we're not able to totally get home. He gets outside the pocket. He makes something happen. Alvin Kamara being on the field at any time is always a problem. So I'm going to say about it. I don't know if we're doing predictions quite yet, but I don't know. I feel like it could go either way.
Yeah. Hopefully, obviously we want a good game, and it seems to be the trend lately with good Thursday night football games. We don't want it to be like, another, NFC South game, I should say, which was, what was it? The Falcons and the Buccaneers. That was the Thursday night game that went into, overtime. We don't want it necessarily to be like that. And if it does, hopefully, it's a Bronco victory. But specifically, from the offensive line perspective for the Saints, and I know we touched a little bit on it briefly, but one of the ways that they can certainly get to Spencer Rattler is with pressure. And I think that's one of the biggest positives, Marcus and Brandon and Matty, was this defensive line. For as much as, it got hated on at the beginning part of the season from Pro Football Focus and their number one hater, Zach Allen, of course. They are absolutely been controlling, for the most part, this entire season so far. And they're going to have to do that, specifically against an offensive line of the New Orleans Saints, which is basically, there's only two starters on that offensive line that have basically been on that line from week one till now. Every single player that is on that offensive line is dinged up or entering their first game action right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a big deal. The injury report's brutal.
Yeah. And we're getting Baron Browning back.
We'll see.
It's bad. Well, that, and then also one thing we didn't really talk about with the game recap against the Chargers. Nick Bonito, man, did 4 straight games with the sack. Jonathan Cooper. We got to pay one of these guys. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm really excited to see both those guys continue to make plays, and if we get Baron Browning back, even better.
Yeah, put Baron Browning back at his original position, and then
crazy thought. Maybe do that.
Just put Sternad and Baron Browning out there. You won't have like a real Mike, but you'll just have a lot of athleticism.
Do you like the idea, Boggins? I mean,
I mean, he hasn't played that position in a while now. I don't know about that, but I like. He is very athletic.
Yeah,
but he would have to sprint more, and he might get hurt. And I don't know if I want that.
Yeah,
I like the idea of having the most talented players on the field.
I just, I will say, I think that he's shown a little bit more when it came to being an edge rusher and a pass rusher, to where I kind of want to keep him there. And it seems, and knock on wood, things might actually trend in that direction for a guy who's not playing right now and has not actually seen significant action, and that would be a guy by the name of Drew Sanders. But he's not playing right now, and so maybe you kind of work on a little bit of some patchwork a little bit. But yeah, it's just it's a very interesting thought. I still kind of feel like maybe they want to have Drew Sanders be that guy. Like that's, like almost like on the inside linebacker spot. But, obviously he's injured. He's not here right now. So you got to kind of make do with what you have right now. So predictions.
Quan.
So predictions, are we looking at a sweep here on Thursday night? We looking at a sweep? I hope so. I'm kind of feeling 27-17 Broncos win.
Yeah, I'm around there too, like 23-13.
That feels pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I got 20-13 Broncos win.
Ooh, a bit closer.
I will say it would be pretty devastating if the Broncos lose this game. People are gonna burn some stuff down.
I hate to use this and scare, and this is obviously the month of scaries. But does this game remind you guys a little bit of the Cleveland Browns game on Thursday Night Football
against Case Keesum?
And where the Browns were basically limping into that game, and they could have.
Yeah, who knows?
Boggins is like, I don't want to talk about it.
But the perspective for this, right? So we have the game Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a litany of trades already, right? 2 receivers. We got Adams going to the Jets. We got Cooper going to the Bills. We have Cam Akers going back to the Vikings. So that we're starting to see some movement across the NFL now for teams getting ready to make a push and teams that kind of understand their lot. If the Broncos lose, they would be sellers. But I think if they win and they're 3-4 with the upcoming game against Carolina, I think they might be buyers at that point. And after a Thursday night football game where they might be able to pull the trigger on something on a Friday, keep who they're trading for away from having to play this weekend, give them extra time to integrate into the team. And, oh, by the way, we're playing, I hate to down talk anybody because it's the NFL, but like the lowly Carolina Panthers here, coming off of that 10-day bye week kind of thing, quasi bye, like it's something to really consider what that looks like for us, being able to make a move on a potential impact player. We could be talking about a new Denver Bronco come Friday.
Maybe. Let's talk about it briefly. I mean, like, I think that because like the trade deadline is it's after the Ravens game, or is it just like a little bit before the Ravens game? It's November.
It's right after November 5th.
Yeah.
I think it's in between the Ravens game and the Chiefs game. But you wouldn't want to do a trade with
Right.
only a few days before playing the Chiefs.
Well, and I was just going to say specifically, Boggins and Brandon and Matty, like if they make a trade, I would at least venture it to be, if at the very least, after this game against the Saints, because you have the Panthers and the Saints. So I would have ventured to guess that it's going to be either after the Panthers game or after the Saints game, where you want to maybe make some moves. And specifically, I know that there are some positions in mind, and we've had this conversation, Brandon and Matty, before. My personal preference, Boggins, has been the tight end. Probably where they need to go. As far as a player that they might want to trade for, but I think that there's probably some players that they can make, maybe not just one move, but maybe they can make a couple moves.
7.
7 moves.
Yeah.
7. But and acquire maybe a wide receiver for a little bit of some lesser cost, and then you go out and you trade for in a David Njoku, which is, of course, my personal dream.
I want Mark Andrews.
Dude, I'd be so down. Honestly, Mark Andrews, great answer. I don't know what happened with him in the Ravens. Actually, I do, but
Isaiah Likely blown up. That's great.
Isaiah Likely's blown up. Well, the only reason they might want to keep Andrews is he's been such a great blocker for them, and that offensive line has been.
And
I want a tight end that knows coverages. I want a tight end that knows coverages, knows how to get open and sit in the holes between the defense. That's what I want.
So Mark Andrews would be like
a
fantastic.
You right
trade.
there. First down. First down.
So you want Mark Andrews band to find the space between?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Evan Ingram is a guy that I really like. I know he's had some injury concerns of late. He had 10 catches on 12 targets or something this last weekend, over 100 yards receiving. Like, that would be great. One thing we have to consider is the other team gets a vote. And so the Ravens probably aren't going to be selling. The Falcons aren't going to be selling Pitts. The Bears probably aren't going to be selling Kmet. So we gotta find opportunities. I do think Ingram and Njoku are probably our best options.
Yeah.
For tight end. And there still might be some receivers. Christian Kirk is my favorite receiver potentially to target because of his separation too.
Got to acquire a contract, but
yeah, I don't want that.
Most of that hit's already done, though.
Is it?
I think a lot of that hit's already eaten.
His potential out, from what I saw, was this year, in 2024. So maybe, I don't know. But Jacksonville specifically is a team that you would want to look into for playmakers and stuff, as far as players that maybe want to be shipped off a little bit, as far as adding to the room. Obviously, we mentioned about Alvin Kamara, but almost said Trevor Etienne, right? Or Trevor Etienne is his brother in Georgia, so it's Travis Etienne. Is the one that's famously been in kind of the rumors, and I don't necessarily know if I like the idea of trading for a running back, but I like the idea of specifically the tight end position. Obviously, T. Higgins is the number one pipe dream, of course, that everybody's been wanting, but I want to throw out a name for both for all of you guys, and it's a tight end that is kind of flown under the radar and might be a trade target. But how would you feel about Hunter Henry? Obviously, he's got familiarity with Joe Lombardi. Bit of an athletic tight end. Bringing Hunter Henry into the building a little bit. Let's start off with you, Boggins. So, who are some of the players that are catching your eye? And is Hunter Henry one of those guys?
He doesn't really move the needle for me. He also doesn't. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't stay healthy a ton.
Yeah, he's not been having good health.
It doesn't really move the needle for me, honestly. I mean, if we're gonna go for it, we should really go for it. The different options. At this point, I'm more looking towards the off season as far as finding a proper tight end if we can't get an Njoku, or I'm not a big Ingram guy either. He's hot and cold, and when he's cold, he's
been somewhat banged up this year, hasn't he?
He's always been banged up.
Yeah,
like his whole career. So I'm not like a big Ingram guy either. Njoku's fine. I think he has a higher ceiling. I think he's kind of like around more your Fant realm of like athleticism. And yeah, I don't want that. I think Njoku has a higher athleticism ceiling. He's just not overly consistent. But what Mark Andrews, if they were willing, I'll take it.
Mike Gesicki could be an interesting name also.
I like Mike Gesicki.
I haven't heard a lot.
Mike Gesicki? Mike Wazowski?
Yeah.
Well, because Eric All is actually getting a lot of burn for them at tight end. So they're putting Gesicki. They're running some 12, but they're putting Gesicki out kind of as like a big slot, if you will, at times. And I think that would actually be a fun dynamic we could add to the offense too. But
I wish teams would just trade rookies that I just want and think that they went to the wrong place, and we can just have them, and then we could have Ben Sinnett.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yes, dude.
I want him so bad, and I know he's not gotten like any targets over there. I don't know what they're doing. It makes me upset. And
Ert's so good, man. Ert's so good.
All right. So
I'm not as in on the Hunter Henry.
Okay.
Trade.
Your hand went to like the side off your screen, and then Cam brought his hand up, and it made it look like it was your hand, but like backwards.
It was mine. We already have an athletic tight end that can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Who's probably going to be gone here in the next week.
Yeah.
If this trend continues.
Maybe. Who knows?
All right. So moving on to, of course, a very good segment and a fun segment that we've been interjecting this year. And it's one that is obviously near and dear to Mr. Boggins' heart. And that is
my heart.
The draft talk and draft conversation. You kind of teased a little bit of a certain player that, you didn't say it, but your backdrop certainly showed it. But
that's right.
Tell us a player that you feel is been kind of catching your eye a little bit, and maybe, just maybe, might actually interest some these Denver Broncos maybe in this upcoming draft.
Well, let me be clear about this upcoming draft. I don't like a ton of players in the first round, but I think there's a lot of good value if you can get them later. And so that's where I'm like, I'm way more of a Broncos seller coming up, like, unless we are super high. And I like Peyton loves his big offensive lineman, right? Like that, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he goes. However, when he gets to receiver, or when we get to that point where we are going to get a receiver, because we're going to draft a receiver, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
At least one. I personally love this big-bodied receiver from Ole Miss, Trey Harris. Trey Harris is an absolute monster. I think he averages like 148 yards a game. He last game he had, I think he had like 101 yards only, but he had like a really big wide open. He was like so wide open on a post that he dropped it. And then later, and so everybody's like, oh my God, what the heck? And then like a quarter later, he mossed some guy in the end zone where like it was thrown right to like the DB's chest. And he literally jumped over his back and grabbed it out of his chest and just pulled it back and scored. He has, I think, also has the most yak yards in the NCAA by like 100 yards. He's very consistent every week. And he makes Jackson Dart look real good over there. and I would love him in a Broncos uniform. I would absolutely have him. I mean, there's some good receivers in this draft, and I know a lot of people, a lot of the focus is on like McMillan up at the top, and Missouri. Why am I forgetting his name?
Luther Burden.
Yeah,
Luther Burden for you.
But I'm not like a big Egbuka fan as well. I just give me Trey Harris, dude. If you could do like I was talking about this earlier. If you could do like a Trey Harris on one side, and then on the other side you can try, Franklin. Hopefully that works out, and then you go get like Tez Johnson, Bo Nix's brother,
literally,
to be in the slot. Let's go. I'm very excited about that. I know we've been doing that for years, though. I think we've been doing that as far as like slots has been concerned for years now, and it hasn't worked out. None of them have worked out, but we will find a good slot receiver eventually.
We're losing at the slot machine for sure.
Yeah, we're due a good slot. We're due a good slot.
Okay, so Trey Harris, yeah, he's what round projection would you put him in? Because like I was recently doing some mock drafts the other day, and it's like it feels like he's
down there. But I also don't think they've like super updated any of the mock simulators, because only like he's gonna be I promise you when draft season starts coming around, he's gonna be one of the names that everybody's gonna be like, oh, this person's on the rise. This person's on the rise. It's kind of like the Deonte Banks thing. When I was like raving about Deonte Banks coming out, and he was like super low down the list, and it was like boom, first round, and you're just like, holy shit! All right, that's cool, I guess. Trey Harris, I think, is going to be the exact same thing. I don't know. I honestly don't know why people aren't raving about him more right now, especially with his numbers that he's putting up.
It's not quite, Genty numbers at wide receiver, but it's
that was the dumbest thing. That was you're obviously referencing Hunter right now with that. You didn't hear what Travis Hunter said about
dude. If I had that many
catches, how many yards would I have? Yeah,
that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It was like you just put your stock just went like this for me.
Maybe you shouldn't play corner. You don't need any hits to the head.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun race. The Heisman race is going to be fun between those two if they stay the way they.
Well, not too many people are catching that running back these days. So
I don't know if Michael Myers can actually catch that running back.
Speaking of Ashton Genty, I'm not going to say Ashton Genty. But another running back that I think is maybe kind of in Ashton's shadow, which I mean, literally everyone is. And Boggins might hate me for saying this, given what just happened on Saturday. Caleb Johnson, man. Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Casually averaging 2 touchdowns a game right now, but he is an absolute beast. He has I think over 300 yards after contact. This guy is an absolute physical dominator, and you want to look for a guy that can run kind of like Williams can, but obviously Williams, we'll see what he's going to look like and what the future holds for him coming off of that major injury. And he's just kind of seemed like he's not the same player that he was, which sucks. And maybe I'm wrong and he pulls back together. But I think we need to, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, give Bo more of a running game. I think you can absolutely make the case for Caleb Johnson. Obviously everyone wants Genty, but I'm not wanting to spend that high of a pick on running back. I don't think we're going to be able to have a pick high enough to get him. But Caleb Johnson, I am very much intrigued by, and he just ran for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns on Boggins, Washington. Washington Huskies, so he probably hates me right now, but Caleb Johnson is a beast. 160 yards, I'm sorry.
It is interesting, though, that everybody always talks about they wouldn't draft a certain player that high because of their position. Right. But as soon as a rival does it, you're like, oh, shit. I don't have to deal with that.
Or specifically when it comes to Ashton Genty, you're like, oh,
if he goes to imagine if he goes to the Raiders.
Right.
Imagine if he goes to the chart, you know what I mean? It's right.
Right.
That's not what you want to deal with.
I more meant I don't know if we're gonna have a high enough pick.
No. Yeah, for sure. Not anymore. not yet. Not as fair. I think I kind of blew up the internet with making a mock draft where I traded back and got like a ton of picks out of 3 to go to 10 and picked up Genty first, and everybody lost their damn minds. But I was like, but you don't see, I just picked up how many picks and we got the the best college running back of our generation.
Right. It's like Genty's basically a blue chip prospect. So like, what are we elite of? And we're saying this like right now, like he's a blue chip prospect basically. And so like, what are we doing hating on this whole idea right now?
Best actual running back since like Adrian Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and because like Bijan Robinson was going through some of that just a little bit, like, for a couple of years, but like there's prospects where it's just like you take the position value out of it and they're just a blue chip player. And that's exactly what, Genty was. And like, it's so wild. Like, his over under betting line, and obviously I don't bet, but it's like, it is hilarious to me. Like, when you get a chance to see like all of his like, over under for the, all the games now for like all like college football games, like it went from what was like about 100. It always kind of like fluctuates between like 185 to 190 yards in terms of like over or under. And it's ridiculous. Just, it's so wild, and then, he plays Hawaii and he's like in the third quarter and he is a very standard, like 15 carry game and, 135 carries or something for like 2 touchdowns. And, but yeah, I like the Caleb Johnson part because it's like, we know that Iowa is literally a team that is always going to have no offense, but when they do, it's going to at least be something that's either going to be from the tight end, one player specifically, or 2 people specifically in the tight end room, or it's just going to be a dominant wide receiver, or it's just going to be relying solely on
dominant wide receiver.
Not from Iowa, at least.
When?
No,
but run and shove it down. Shove it down here.
They're not going to have an offense until they beat Washington by completing 8 passes.
Yeah.
So to get to mine, we had the game of the week in the Big Ten, which is really weird to say Big Ten, between Ohio State and Oregon. You guys might talk about Jeremiah Smith. You might talk about Emeka Egbuka. I don't know if he will be if he'll come out in the draft, but somebody who was a 5-star prospect, come out of Texas A&M, transferred to Oregon. Evan Stewart, actually. He's not a big-bodied guy. He's 6 foot, 175-ish. He probably built into the frame a little bit. What do you think, Boggins? If he waits one more year, he's probably closer to 6 foot, 185-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think you're kind of hanging more towards like a Franklin type.
Yeah,
stylistically. I like him as a prospect. I think he will do good. I don't know if I necessarily be another fit for the Broncos because I think that skill set is probably more so on the Franklin side of things. But I do like him as a prospect. I think he will. He should come out. I wouldn't be surprised.
He's a junior. He doesn't have the stats, but
yeah,
half the season's still to go. He showed up biggest in the biggest moments in that game. Was the best receiver in that game with 3 other really damn good receivers.
Went out, and then
it's a pretty loaded receiver draft again too. So it's
hard to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, but I mean, especially with those NIL deals nowadays, it's just like, hey, you might as well just hang out.
Right. And, they're going to reload at quarterback, but I think he's going to start getting on a lot of people's radars. Before this game, he was really, kind of like an afterthought in that offense. They might start scheming more and more for him. And who knows, right? Like, I mean, obviously he was a transfer kid. It takes a while to get integrated there. So That's pretty interesting. I'm really excited to see what the second half of the season looks like for him. But you guys, I mean, Tez Johnson, like,
Yeah.
like that would be a hand in glove type of fit for us too. So
Yeah.
I can't really hate. I was just trying to get somebody a little bit off the board that people
That's
aren't really
right.
talking about yet.
When you also, if it's not Tez Johnson, I feel like Evan Stewart's probably next in line in terms of, having get here. D-Rock asks, what is the likelihood of A.T. Perry or Parham playing on Thursday? It's hard to say right now, right? Like it's kind of hard to say. I would say it would be very fitting, not just from the overall story of, the wide receiver room needs it, like they need a, but just it would be great as a nice little, I don't want to say a troll job, but it would be a nice little kind of screw you situation to a certain degree with the Saints, knowing about how bad their wide receiver room is right now. And then you basically activate or promote, A.T. Perry for Thursday's game. And he goes off for, 8 and $120 or something, with like a touchdown or two. Like that would be chef's kiss on Thursday against the Saints. Yeah. But I would just say like the likelihood is not.
I don't think they're. But I haven't heard anything about them being elevated at all. So and Parnham is weird. It's been there for.
Yeah. I don't know why we haven't elevated Parham yet. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like who is playing him out of an opportunity?
Yeah, that's no one. No one. It was funny because I forgot about him until today. I had to be reminded that I was like, hasn't he only been here like 2 weeks? And like he's been here like almost 2 months. And I'm like, whoa, that's hilarious. I completely forgot that he's been here that long.
Yeah.
Anything. Well,
by the way, circling back a little bit to the Ohio State and Oregon,
y'all good with the weather, bro? Like everything's straight.
It's like a Amber Alert or something.
Just a test.
I just got that.
Only a test.
Yeah,
just a test. Only a test.
By the way, talking about the Ohio State and Oregon game, can we briefly touch about how that might have been one of the worst handled, not just clock management, but like one of the worst, plays I've ever seen.
Howard.
Yeah. Did Howard think he had more time?
He Dak Prescott did it.
Minus the spike. Like, because I was.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it was too late. By the time he slid, it was 0. It was like, we don't have time. I don't have time to get up. I'm just going to stay here. And Lanning said afterwards that he got that 12-man
on purpose.
Penalty on purpose.
Yeah, and I guess they made a rule about it today or something. Like there's a new rule. They did something like to change the rule or something like that. I didn't get a chance to see it fully, but yeah, they made a change about that. That was just one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen. Like and he's a 5th-year senior. He came from Kansas State. He goes over to Ohio State. So it's not like but he's a 5th-year senior. He's not exactly like Cam Rising. And like who's entering like almost his 10th year of college football, but like
he better be Dr. Rising by this point.
Like it was just nuts to me that like you have a situation where it's zeros on the clock and you're sliding and all right, any final thoughts, gentlemen, as we round out the show and close things out?
If we lose, I don't know what I'll do, but it's going to be bad.
You guys were annoyed with my mock drafts now. Just wait.
If we lose, it's draft season.
Just wait. I love people that give me crap for posting mock drafts. They're like, "Oh, you're already doing mock drafts." Right. Look at my bio, my guy.
I was gonna say
what I do. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously hopeful. And if not, life's good, man.
That's right.
Just forget about football, man. Just kidding. No, I'd cry.
It's that hello again, old friend.
Mhm.
Tankathon.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
A little hurt by Johnny Cash. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like the Thunder are obviously going to be going places this year, but
Ugh.
if we lose opening game against the Nuggets, like I'm definitely going to fire that tweet out just for the lulz. But like that's real. Tankathon is such a safe place.
It's a safe place. It
It
really is.
it really does like
is.
soothe you in the worst of times.
Mhm.
Like all we're asking with a game like this is for us to feel this way. That's all we're all asking to feel that way. That's all we're asking. But no, I'm hoping for a W. Yeah, so hopefully, things can come that way. By the way, programming note, we are going to be doing 2 shows. So we did a show today on Wednesday, and we're going to be doing a show on Friday, recapping the game of the Saints and Bronco game, and we're actually going to be doing that with Jordan Lopez of Broncos Ave. He will be on Friday, and to get a chance to talk about that Broncos Saints game, and hopefully maybe at that point, as we were talking about at this point in the show, we can maybe talk about maybe some trade candidates just a little bit more, able some serious candidates now, maybe that the Broncos can actually make, and maybe there will be a trade following that game. But Boggins, it's always a blast, man. Like I said, like you're mainly Broncos alumni. I mean, like you're always welcome back. And this I venture to bet like this will not be obviously the last time you're going to be on. You're like,
no, it's the last time. Yeah, I don't want to.
Oh, sorry. See you later.
It was great knowing you.
Yeah,
I will remember.
You didn't pay me enough this time. Remember, I told you that there's inflation plus the interest plus the new chicken Big Mac that I want.
You had Diddy demands. I see.
that's right.
I said nothing about baby oil.
I'll make sure that I pay you in
Kirkland brand
Wingstop.
baby oil. Sorry.
I'll make sure I pay you in Wingstop.
All right.
So that we can maybe get you on a little bit more. But no, it was an absolute blast. You're mainly Broncos alumni. You will always be family here, and if you're always welcome. And maybe if you want to come by next week, you're certainly welcome. But yeah, so for Matty, Brandon, myself, and Boggins, make sure you hit us up over there on the social media machine. It's right there, Mr. _Boggins. Brandon Miller at Brandon Miller PO, and Matty Mulls Pod. Actually, before we go, obviously, sorry, Boggins, I meant to ask you, take us through the whole idea that came about with the white man can't jump edit. I'm sure everybody's been dying to know, because you are that is the one where you are the sole creator of that edit. Don't let people, for anybody that wants to kind of take credit, they're idiots for one.
Yeah.
But where did that start from? Because now you are super famous. You're on NFL Films now. Like, I mean, you're big
time.
Oh yeah. So I have this little group chat with a couple of people, and some of John Super Bowlin, as some would call on the Twitter machine.
He's amazing. Love him.
Listen, I don't have time to come up with these ideas all the time. So John always just like it's more so like, hey Boggy, can you make this for me? Hey Boggy, can you make this for me? Hey Boggy, can you make this for me? And I'm like, I have 5 minutes in my time, and I'll put that together real quick.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when I put this together in 5 minutes, not even good, it absolutely blows up. And I'm upset because I'm like, this is my 5-minute little crappy thing that I just made. Hold on, let me make you a better one. So I make the better one, and everyone's like, no. It gets shown to Sertan as well. And we're like talking about like shirts and stuff, and he's like, or I was like, can we do the nicer version? And Sertan's like, I like the crappy version. I'm like, what the hell? This is dumb. I'm not gonna do 5-minute edits anymore. I'm not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. So, and then it's on the NFL Network. It's fine. Or not NFL Network. Sorry, CW. I didn't even know they had an NFL show on CW until they hit me up on Twitter asking for. But whatever. That's what it is.
That's funny. That is super funny. He's a great guy. Make sure you follow him there on social media, Mr. Boggins. He's the one. He's the sole creator of the White Man Can't Jump edit. Don't let anybody tell you different. Follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO. Follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod and myself at Game Parker PO. Follow the show handle as well at Manely Broncos. It's been a great show, and we will see you guys Friday for hopefully a Denver Broncos victory.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.